Hey, what's up guys? I have my 94 Integra GSR here. Today I'm going to be adjusting the valves. I have noticed that there is some loud ticking coming from in the top of the engine, and it's time. So yeah, let me show you which tools I'll be using. It's really straightforward. This is the main one right here. You actually don't even have to use this one, but for a GSR head or VTEC head, I would highly suggest this tool. You can buy it on Amazon. I think it's like under 15 bucks. It basically has a screwdriver in there. You can see it right there. That's like a 10 millimeter socket right there. So you can hold the adjusting screw and unlock the jam nut, at the same time, which is super helpful, totally worth it. And then just a ratchet or 10 millimeter to undo the valve cover bolts. And then I just like to have a parts tray going. Anyways, first step, let's go ahead and pop the hood. Let's get started. Okay. So first things first, we need to undo all of the bolts holding on the valve cover. First, I'm going to start out with these four for the spark plug wire, spark plug cover, and then the rest of the 2 millimeter nuts that are along the valve cover. We also have this guy right here, which this looks to be a power steering hose. So you'll need to do that one as well, and then flip this guy up out of the way. And then you probably have some sort of, ventilation to your valve cover on it. Mine happens to be a aftermarket intake, but mine just comes right off. I think OEM, there's a clamp right here. You'll just get some pliers and clamp that and pull it down. That should slide right off. Let's give that a try. There we go. Also be a good idea, if you find oil in the spark plug tubes, now would be a great time to replace the valve cover gasket. Mine looks good, so I won't be doing that this time, but always good to check. Tighten them. Okay, so here's what it looks like so far. I have all of the nuts off. Basically everything is disconnected. Oh, nope. Good thing I double checked. This guy always seems to be forgotten. Don't forget about this one. After you have the nut out, just pry it up. So the valve cover is ready to be taken off. If you haven't taken yours off in quite a while, sometimes they can be stuck. Some people suggest like putting flathead screwdriver underneath here and kind of pry it between this bracket and the valve cover. You also want to make sure these grommets, these round grommets, these don't fly off actually into the engine or in the spark plug, tubes or anything like that. There we go. See how it just props up? Okay, I'm going to set this to the side. I believe this has 136,000 miles on it. And look how clean that is. Nice. Very nice. Anyways, here's my valve cover gasket. I'm gonna wanna take this off just so we can put it back on the valve cover and clean this edge around the head. You wanna clean all the way around. I believe it'll make a better seal with your tube seals and the actual valve cover gasket. Mine's still good, not brittle at all, so I'm gonna set it to the side. I'll eventually clean all the old Honda Bond off. All right, the inside of that cylinder head though. Looks great. All right, so obviously here's the exhaust manifold. So this is the exhaust side, and then there's the intake manifold. So this is the intake side. You can see there is the adjusting screw and the locking nut or jam nut. So you put the screwdriver in that screw and you screw it left to loosen and right to tighten it. Same on the jam nut, but the jam nut is not an adjustment. It's just to keep or lock the adjustment. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the engine at top dead center, and let's start from there. This engine's firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. So it will be 1, 3, 4, and then 2. So I always like to start with 1 just so I know, because I will remember it better that way. Alright guys, so before we put the engine at top dead center, it makes it a lot easier if you take out the spark plugs. The cylinders are a lot easier to move if you take those out. These should be barely tight. These are torqued down to 13 foot-pounds, so it really shouldn't be that hard to get these out. I'm gonna go ahead and break them loose first, and then I'll just spin them out with the socket. All right, first spark plug. Looks pretty good. That's exactly how it's supposed to look. Little bit of, orange haze there. It's not burning too lean. It's not burning too rich. If it was lean, it'd be white, I believe, and if it was rich, it'd be black. But this is exactly what you want. Okay, so now that we have the spark plugs out, now we can turn the engine to top dead center. So I went ahead and jacked my car up and put it on jack stands. There are a couple different ways you can turn it to top dead center, but this is the way I like to do it. I have my half inch ratchet here. This one right here is the bolt to a motor mount, so you don't want to mess with that one. And then this hole has been made in my little plastic shroud underneath here, but you can see your crank pulley is just all the way back there. This is just a series of extensions, and then you want to have your ratchet on counterclockwise or loosen. So as I turn this, you can see the cam gears right here. What we're looking for is for them to say, I believe it's up, or there are two notches, one on one tooth and then one on the other, and they should facing each other. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn crank pulley. Oh yeah, nice and easy with those spark plugs out. So you can see on the cam gears right here, each of them have up. You can see it right there. Whenever those are facing up, it'll be at top dead center. And then let me see if I can bring the camera in. There's also two little slits in each cam gear right there. Right there, you can see that one right there. So yeah, whenever those line up, which should be right about there, the engine should be at top dead center. All right guys, so I have my engine at top dead center, and then this is how I know that we're at top dead center. Let me show you. So number one is both cam sprockets. You can see the up is facing up. It is slightly turned to my left, which is normal. Plastic cover is kind of in the way. But you can see right there, these two teeth, right in the middle of the screen right there, they have two little notches in them, and they should be face to face. That's how you know that you're at absolute top dead center. After I'm done with cylinder 1, because remember it goes 1, 3, 4, 2. After cylinder number 1, we go to cylinder 3. So I will turn the crank to where the up is facing this way. That will be cylinder number 3. And then 4, the up will be facing down. And then cylinder 2, the up will be facing this way. So that's how you know which cylinder you're on. Another way I've seen that people can tell is you see this ridge right here on this cam brace right here. If you run your finger along the end of this brace, like on this edge, you should just be able to feel or see the cam lobe heads right at the top here. So they should basically be in line. You see there's the VTEC and there's the other two lobes. That's perfect right there. That's top dead center. So that's how you know which cylinder you want to adjust it at. And if you're wondering what the specs are, they should be on your hood. if you have the original hood. So here it is right here. You can see, valve lash, intake, and exhaust. Intake is 0.17 plus or minus 0.02 millimeters cold, and then exhaust is 0.19 plus or minus 0.02 millimeters cold. So that cold means that you need to let your engine basically sit overnight. You do not want to do this right after you've been driving it or whenever it's warm at all. All right, so here are my feeler gauges. These are just the sizes that I pulled out that I think I'm gonna need for the job. I like to go with the tighter tolerances. I've heard some people say to go with the looser ones, but in my experience, I did do it to the more looser spec, and that did not work. Absolutely not. All right, guys, I found a loose one. This is cylinder number 3, and I have in my hand a 0.20 millimeter feeler gauge, and this one should not go in. This one goes in no problem, but you see this one? You see I won't allow it to go in? That's how it should be, whereas this one can go right in. I want it to be this 0.178, and that one just goes in way too freely. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my tool. You only do these two, this one and this one. This middle one is VTEC, and you don't adjust VTEC. You couldn't because there's only 1-2 adjusters. See, the screwdriver is in the adjustment screw, and then this socket is around the 10 millimeter. So as I loosen the socket with this handle right here, I hold the screwdriver steady, which is holding the adjuster. So whenever I knock that jam nut loose, if I'm holding this, then it does not move the screw. So that's kind of the point of that. And once it's loose, then you'll be freely to make slight adjustments with your screwdriver here. Okay, I need to tighten it, so I'm gonna slightly move it and then tighten the jam nut back. There we go. Use my feeler gauge. See how we did? A little bit of drag, that's great. Let's check our 0.20. Does not go in. That's basically a success. But what you really want is you want all these cylinders, all these valve adjustments to be consistent. You want the same amount of drag on each one, just the ever so slightest drag. See, as I pull this out, you can just feel it. You can feel it and you can hear it. I do have my fan on, so that's a little bit of background noise, but you can just feel it dragging ever so slightly. And then try my 0.0 or my 0.20. Will not go in, which is the upper spec. Remember I was telling you I prefer tighter specs? This is the upper spec. All right, guys, another tip here. If you have to loosen any of these jam nuts, it's a good idea to go ahead and use a torque wrench. The torque spec on them is 14 foot-pounds or 168 inch-pounds. Perfect. So even if you don't make adjustments on any of these, I would still double check them. I mean, it is the internals of an engine, so I would consider it pretty important. All right, guys. I finally got all of the valves adjusted and I torqued them down, the jam nuts to 14 foot-pounds. After you do the adjustment, it's a very good idea to go through each cylinder all over again and double or triple check. Because even whenever you torque them down using your torque wrench, there's a possibility you could make just the ever so slightest adjustment. And you know, these are so precise and you're making such little adjustments. It's very good practice to go through it at least once or twice more. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. If we find any that are out of spec, then we'll adjust it then. So our adjustment is done. All you have to do other than this is put everything back together. On the valve cover, whenever you put your valve cover gasket back on, it's a good idea on these GSR or B18C motors is to put a little bit of Honda Bond on the corners here, on here and here, and then here and here. On these cam caps, just on the corners, you do not need it all the way around. No, you don't need that. Just on these, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 corners. So other than that, it should be, the process should be, you know, reverse of removal. So looks like we're done here. Another job well done. I found out that in each cylinder, there was, I think in every single cylinder, there was just one valve that needed to be adjusted. So 4 out of my 16 valves needed to be adjusted. And it really wasn't even that bad. 4 that needed adjustment, they weren't tight, they were a little bit too loose, but just barely. I mean, it was just such a small adjustment, but it's good to have 4-cylinder that, you know, runs in harmony. They all like to be adjusted exactly the same tightness for this engine to run smoothly. So anyways, I hope you guys learned something. If you like my car, if this was informative to you, if you learned something, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.